precious opportunity that we have to come all together as a small but mighty district in Galt, California. As I get us going and growing with our presentation today, I wanted to start with something that struck me last week. There were two meetings that I sat in on, and again, I'm Karen Schauer, Superintendent with the Galt Joint Union Elementary School District. But there was a meeting that I sat in with new teachers to our school system and also with our maintenance and operations staff, with our custodians. And one of the things that struck me with the new teachers that I met with was that when we talked to them about why they had chosen to come to Galt to teach and to the Galt Joint Union Elementary School District, one of the themes that I picked up from them was that they came here because they know that they are more than a number and that they, in a small but mighty district, can make a difference. And that's not unlike, I believe, what we're doing for children and our learners in our school system. Our students are more than a number. We are knowing them better than ever. And you in this room have been a part of making the bright future even brighter for each and every learner in the Galt Joint Union Elementary School District. About a year ago at this time, we worked with Dr. Elizabeth Kaufman, who is in our audience, Superintendent of the Galt Joint Union, or Galt High School District, along with Jean Palazzo, City Manager. Could both of you please stand up? And the three of us, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, because what we talked through was the importance of looking at this work for learners in our school system, how we can build this bright future together with two school systems, an elementary district, a high school district in the city of Galt, and taking an even longer view. And what that meant was really looking at what our work means cradle to career, and what does to and through college mean. And so Dr. Robert Nelson and Dr. Kathy Hart, two college presidents, came to Galt. And they pushed our thinking. We had parents and children and youth and community members, and our two college presidents talked to us about what it takes to get to and through college. So again, what it takes, in part I think what you're going to see in our presentation and here, and then we want to hear from you too, is that it takes shared responsibility. It takes shared responsibility and leadership and a willingness to learn and to relearn and continuous improvement. So before I get going and growing, I'd like to make a few more introductions. We have two board members who are here, Kevin Papanaugh and John Gordon, if you would please stand. And I'd also like to introduce Dr. Jim Dragna with Cal State University Sacramento, who you'll be meeting in just a few minutes. So our journey, in 2012, we were one of 16 districts in the United States of America that received a $10 million investment to transform our school system from a very effective student-centered system to a learner-centered system. And so what we've done is we've sustained some work. And before I talk about that again, our goals is to share our Bright Future Learning efforts with you, get a university perspective about our personalized learning work, and then introduce our leadership team members. So this journey that we've been on has been one that has been sustained. It has been sustained over years of work. In the last 3, though, it has become much more learner-centered. In the state of California, there is a required plan called the Local Control Accountability Plan. So we have used that opportunity to further innovate and use continuous improvement to get better and better and better. And so from this logic model, which even our logic model has evolved, you see our 4 goals. And I'm just going to touch on these 4 goals. Goal number 1 has to do with the transformation to more of a strength-based system. really tapping into the individual needs and personal interests of students along with their aspirations. And if you notice in goal number 1, it talks about learning pathways and how we work with our high school district to do that. The second goal deals with implementing the California State Standards. And we're looking at how we implement that in classrooms, beyond the school day, with the power of technology, and also with outdoor learning opportunities and project-based service learning. The third goal area, is related to continuous improvement, and it's continuous improvement as a system. Again, we have stayed the course with these 4 goals over 3 years. And in that third goal, it also involves personalized evaluation. We have 31 educators in this room who were part of a pilot program to look at the California teaching standards, blend them with personalized learning, deeper learning standards, and pilot some work. They were pioneers in that work. And we're just scratching the surface about how to line our system up for continuous improvement. What I also wanted to point out with goal number 3 is that if I think about what we also have 3 years into our reform work, into the evolvement of things, is that we not only are looking at achievement and equity and excellence, but we also are emphasizing individual growth. We have the measures of academic progress, the MAP assessment. We even tap into the social, emotional aspects of our learners. We assess, as a system, hope, engagement, entrepreneurial aspirations, as well as career financial literacy. And then the fourth goal, which is also so very exciting, is that looking at our school facilities, and we're in a beautiful facility right now, but we were successful, and our high school district was as well, to pass measures E and K so that our school district facilities can reflect the next-gen learning that our children deserve and that our community need as neighborhood treasures. So with these 4 goal areas that we've sustained over time, and with work with our high school district and our city of Galt and with leaders in this community, we really are at a point where we can do some groundbreaking work of building this together, of helping education catch up to the future we're in now, to this rapidly changing world. That we look at what we're doing from cradle to career, and what does this work that we're doing to personalize learning, to really tap into our children's strengths, their interests, to tap into growth like we've never done before, what that does in terms of helping children, helping our learners in this community get to and through college for career and life success. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to turn our presentation next to Dr. Jim Dragna with Cal State University Sacramento. We are just so excited that this articulation work is growing in the community of Galt, reaching from preschool to university. So Dr. Dragna, welcome to Galt, welcome back to Galt, and I'm going to turn this to you.
Thank you very much. First of all, good morning, everyone. Again, with a little energy. Good morning, everyone. You know, this time in the morning, I'm especially a little bit sluggish, so I'm going to build off your energy a little bit, and I'm going to ask you to do something, if I may. What I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to find another way of recognizing you other than with your name. So in just a minute, I'm going to ask you to stand up for a particular kind of attribute that you might have. Berkowitz talks about the fact that not only in a diverse community, and one that we know actually helps everyone to thrive, do we recognize diversity, but that we also celebrate it. So how about we take a minute and celebrate a little bit of diversity here. What I'd ask, if all those people who have this particular attribute would stand up, and when you do, I would like you all to clap, but not only clap, but clap profusely with as much enthusiasm as you can. All right? It's easy. So let me at this time ask everyone who is the oldest child in your family, you were the oldest one, if you would please stand and let's everyone celebrate that. Okay? Okay, that was okay. I'm grading the teachers and everyone else here. That was all right. Literally talking about celebrating means when you stand up, I want you to literally suck it all in. Just take in the celebration. Turn around, bring it all in. Let yourself be celebrated today, all right? All those people that were always kind of forgotten, you were in the middle group, you know, so you weren't the oldest and weren't the youngest. If you would stand up and finally be recognized, please stand up. Much, much better. All right, you the youngest, we all know you got the attention anyway. Go stand up now. Come on, let's celebrate you. Yeah, you know, they're still taking the attention. They won't stop. How about those people who are twins? Do we have any twins here? Anybody was a twin? Are we anywhere? Oh, there's one. There we go. Any triplets? Anybody who's a triplet? Higher than a triplet? Anyone, for whatever reason, I didn't acknowledge? Anyone? Only child. I'm sorry. A lot of those were only child. Thank you for taking assertion there. I appreciate that. All right. What I'm going to talk about today is how, especially Sacramento State, but more importantly, higher education is literally turning on its head to address the needs of students in a different way. And one of the ways, and most significant ways that we're looking at students now is something that you're already doing. In fact, that's the reason I'm here. And having conversations with Karen and with others, and to being a part of looking at issues nationwide as really as a result of personalization and looking at what you just outlined there, please know that you are completely in line and way ahead of where higher education is going. And I would like to offer a partnership with Sacramento State, and I would say other universities here in California especially, to take the options that you have laid out for students, your learning theories, your pedagogical approach, and let us be a partner with that right on through to success through the university. That's why I'm here. And to take a minute to really look at how the universities, especially Sacramento State and higher education in California, is becoming that continuation of the journey that you're starting here, both elementary, middle school, and eventually into secondary, high school, and community colleges. So with that in mind, I thought I would give you a high-tech presentation of what this is all about. My high-tech presentation starts with a bag. In fact, it's the only AV material I have with me today. No PowerPoint, nothing other than a bag. Turns out that when I was at University of Notre Dame for my undergraduate work, I kind of messed up my first semester, as many of our students tend to do. Now we have technology that helps. Then it was not uncommon to find yourself really without not having the proper amount of classes in order to graduate, especially in your first semester. I was one of those people. I was late to register, and I was missing 3-credit-hour class. I looked through the catalog, and all there was available was a course called The Philosophy of Jacques Maritain. Are any of you familiar with the philosophy of Dragna? Neither was I. But I had to take it. It was the only one, and I found my way to the classroom. It was a very small classroom. It was in the library. There were 12 students sitting around. Obviously, all of them had messed up their schedule as well. And we all sat down in this small room and waited for the professor. In a few minutes, this kind of befuddled-looking professor walked in. He looked absent-minded. He didn't even sure look like he knew where he was going. He sat at the front table. He took out this long list. It was the roster of the class, as if there was 500 of us there. There was only 13. And he began to read our names. And when he read their names and he came to my name, he said, Mr. James Dragna. He said, what a beautiful name that is. Let's everybody in the room just cherish what a beautiful name this is. And I knew immediately I really didn't want to be in this class. Well, at the end of kind of going through the names, he said, Mr. Dragna, what a beautiful name. Mr. Dragna, would you please stand up? And he said, I have something here that I'm going to ask you to do. And he had a bag very similar to this. It wasn't from Safeway, but it was similar. And he reached into the bag. I love this part because you all look like you're interested. This is good. And he pulled out a cucumber. He put the cucumber on his desk, and he said, Mr. Dragna, can you please tell me what this cucumber is doing? I said, well, the cucumber's laying on the desk. It's resting on the desk. And he said, that's not quite right. He said, actually, this cucumber represents a lot of what we're going to learn here today and throughout the course of the semester. And what I'm going to do is every class period, I'm going to ask you to stand, and then I'm going to ask you what the cucumber is doing. And as you develop more knowledge, you'll be able to tell me. I didn't want to be there. So the next class, he would have me, Mr. Dragna, what a beautiful name, Mr. Dragna, please stand up. Can you tell me what the cucumber is doing? I would go through all the things the cucumber is doing, and it became very, very painful, as you can imagine. Well, what was happening was all the other students, the 12 of us who were hanging in this class, we started to meet a little bit earlier because they were just feeling badly for me at this point that I couldn't come up with this about. And we tried to figure out all the things that the cucumber was doing, and we came up with a few things that this professor could do with the cucumber, but I won't get into that. But finally, about halfway through the course, I was ready. And I said, after Professor Evans said, Mr. Dragna, yeah, what a beautiful name you have, he said, what is the cucumber doing? And I stood up proudly and I said, Professor Evans, the cucumber is cucumbering. Not only that, but this cucumber in every bit of its fiber and structure is unique to any other cucumber or to any other object or living being in the world. It is uniquely a cucumber. And Professor Evans said, you got it. You understand. That's what this is about. He said, Mr. Dragna, I picked you for a reason because I saw some of your background. I know you're going to be working with people in your life, and I want you to remember something. I want you to remember how unique this cucumber is. Because when you work with people, people are going to ask you to do a lot of things, gain education, learn expertise, be many things they want you to be. But really, in essence, all you need to be is human. That's why we call you a human being, Mr. Dragna, and don't forget that. Now, that fits in and sounds beautiful, but I'm going to forget that, obviously. I'm as a college student, and you know what? I never have. And I never have because this professor especially lived this kind of philosophy. In case you want to know, Jacques Maritain was an existential philosopher, so it made a lot of sense. But this particular Professor Evans used to go through the campus and walk around, and you could actually see him just stare at one tree at a time. And he would just absorb it. And you could now know what he was doing. He was seeing how unique that particular object was. And as people came up to him and asked him what he was doing or looked up into the tree to figure out what was there, he would do what he said was lingering and pondering with them. And he would just talk to them and talk about a tree, talk about their uniqueness, etc. He died a number of years ago, and the University of Notre Dame actually set up a crosswalk in his honor, an area of the university with a fountain, and yes, you could guess, a tree with a bench, so that anyone who wanted to sit down or linger and talk could talk and look at the trees. Okay? What that means to me is a central part of what you're doing with personalization. You recognize something, and maybe some of you have forgotten, but I'm reminding you how unique these individual students are, and unique to the world and unique to you. And you have responsibility, as mentioned, shared responsibility. I do too. Responsibility, however, has been lost, I think, in higher education, I don't know here, with the idea that that's accountability. The word doesn't mean that. Responsibility means the ability to respond in your unique way. And that's what we are encouraging our teachers to do, our faculty member, our staff members as well, is to see the uniqueness of the students and to build on what you have emphasized in them and you have recognized along the way. Now, let's talk a little bit about what these students are in terms of uniqueness and how we're attending to them, especially in higher ed. And I think this will resonate with what you're doing as well, because I want it to. And I'm going to find points of those common interests. We all understand very recently at the university that we're moving to graduation rates. You may have heard about that. I am called the graduation czar. In your lifetime, you can say you have met a czar. Congratulations. Our students think it's really funny, so I go with that. Basically, what the graduation czar is asked to do is to go through the university, look at our faculty, look at a college and deans, et cetera, and really move student success. But in a very particular way, move it to improve graduation rates. Now here's the part that I'm embarrassed about. At Sacramento State, over this period of time, we have had an 8% four-year graduation rate. 8%. That hurts when I say that. Okay? The part I didn't learn until I got to the university was that 8% has been constant for the last 30 years. It's not a blip. It's not because of any type of regression or any type of economic concerns or social economic concerns. It's been consistent. Why? I was asked to come in, figure out why, and raise those graduation rates because it just wasn't fair for me to stand at the beginning of an orientation, and maybe some of you from a traditional school, and they may say something like, look to your left and look to your right, know that one of you are not going to make of the three, one of you are not going to make it. This, I would literally have to have a bench of 10 people and say, look across this bench, only one of you 10 are going to graduate. That's not a promise I want to be keeping. So what did we need to do to change that? One of the things that we noticed immediately is we had program onto program onto program about persistence, about feelings of socioeconomic, looking at psychosocial issues, working with professors, working with even classes, everything that we could do to internally change with the issue. And you know what we found right off the bat? That this was an issue about programs. This was an issue about cultural expectations. It turns out that over a number of years, well-meaning secondary counselors, post-secondary counselors, parents, teachers were saying to our students, look, because of your background, because of your performances, because of kind of the demand you'll have probably for jobs, those type of things, why don't you just take like 12 credit hours to start? As soon as students do that, they're no longer on track to finish in 4 years. You've got to take 15 hours or 30 hours over the semester. So we were literally kindly sabotaging these students to begin with. Okay. One of the things we did was actively campaign to students about taking 15 or taking 30. We offered incentives, very minor incentives about that. We talked to their parents about the economic advantages of that. And for the year before, 2 years ago now, we had 27% of our students take 15 credits in the first semester. The first year we started the campaign, last year, we had 64%. Just by changing the expectation and educating and talking about the advantages of really taking that course load. The advantages like we have higher grade point average if you do take 15. We also know you organize differently, and that tends to have a great effect as well. Economically, you save about $23,000 by graduating earlier between the years of 4 years and 6 years. Also, about $150,000 across your lifetime just by those 2 years. And more specifically, it raises your chance of graduating at all by about 25%. That's a persuasive argument. Students listened to it, and one of the things that was really impressive was across, and I want to say this again because I've been dealing with this type of stereotyping for long enough, so now I'm coming out. Across ethnicity, across first generation, across socioeconomic, guess what? We were flatlined in terms of the number of students who took us up on that offer. In other words, regardless of the background of the students, they had and wanted to finish and graduate. Okay? Impressive. So I'm thinking, wow, that's 64, I mean, that's a vast improvement if you're going from like 27 and in that first year to 60%. So we tried it again this time. Again, active campaign marketing, expectation. This year, we're up to 84%. Okay? I never thought we'd get that high. And what was the only thing we've done? One, we changed expectation of students coming in. And here's another one. We changed expectations of the faculty as well and advisors. So the faculty worked very hard to do something they'd never done before and something you do all the time. And that is, they looked to the student as being kind of their product, their direction, their uniqueness. In other words, we started offering courses and course times that were in alignment with the student needs, not with the faculty's needs. Okay? And because the subject was a fun subject for the faculty to teach, and we gave them a classroom right across where they needed to take it, we finally figured out that might not figure out and work out for students. We have made an evolution, one that you've already made. Many years ago, we looked at faculty focus in developing higher education. Again, what do faculty enjoy teaching? Then we all decided, let's move to student focus. Let's learn about the students. Let's work with the students. We became up to an epiphany, if you will, that you already know about. It's not about faculty focused, it's not about student focused, it's about the partnership, the relationship. It's a relationship focus. It's creating a community that's bonded together with a sense of belonging, all moving towards the same direction, and that is student success. With that in mind, I have something to share with you. Many of you, even though it's not stated in your philosophy, and I'm going to challenge you right now, have an understanding that one of the goals is to get students into universities, for those students who want to. Is that true? Okay. This is for those students who want to. Great. Unbeknownst to you, and unbeknownst to me, we've been making a mistake with that. Because many schools now that we see, especially in some of the charter schools as well, who have moved to 100% acceptance to get into college, that's great. They're still around 17%, many of them, around 17 to 25% that those students actually finish college. We've been sending the wrong message. It's not getting to college, it's graduating from college. That's the message. And if that's the message, then what do we need to do to set that up? And that's why I'm here to talk about it. So I'm going to lay it out in my terminology, which is essentially, very quickly, we are student learning successful outcomes. So basically, we are looking at what it is that students need to learn to have success outcomes. Very similar, again, to the program you're using, Personalization. We're stealing it from you. Thank you. Basically, what we're looking at is, what is a student? We know, as you know, and I won't go further into it, that a student is this unique individual with many pathways in order to be successful, and we're going to focus on success, which you do, not in terms of participation, okay? We're going to establish what the outcomes are for learning, like you do, not just about having exposure to bright professors. That makes sense. We're going to move from a situation where we're kind of through bottleneck courses, or we're looking at issues related to students' performance. We're no longer going to just use courses to weed out students. It's not a competitive system anymore for us at Sacramento State. Every student who comes can graduate. They're not competing against each other. They're not moving in a situation where they have to kind of avoid the trips to keep them from succeeding. We do know that most students don't fail because of their academic abilities. they fail or have difficulties because of financial issues, or they have issues with health, or the family has health, we are implementing a very active understanding of giving those students the social constructs that help them to come together. You're doing that already as well. We're emphasizing this, and we're emphasizing a sense of belonging because we know students perform better with belonging. Now we're looking at learning. I'm a psychologist by background. My specialty was in adolescence and young adult work. I get excited about neuropsychology. I'm sure you all do as well. You all know, and it's been in the press, and many of you have education even beyond my education in terms of what we're seeing with neuropsychology, but if we started to teach to the brain rather than to teach to our prejudice of who these students are, we could transform how students become successful, okay? We know, for instance, and you all know as well, that the prefrontal lobe of the brain really starts developing from the time right before puberty to the age of 25. That's the section we're speaking to when you're talking to students. You know that. You know it's about problem solving, delayed gratification, complex thinking, memory, etc. Okay? And thinking about that, we literally then arbitrarily set up a system that is artificially divided. If that's true, then your work, the high school's work, college work, especially for the traditional students, is an ongoing developmental process. We've lost that, at least in higher education, okay? We are no longer the designation of where we want our students to go. We're a vehicle to take them to the next developmental level in college. That's true for you. We ought to be in partnership from the beginning of the process all the way through, and then help those students continue to develop as lifelong learners, okay? We don't do that. If you look at that, it's from the age that they start all the way through the age 25. We have a system that breaks it up along the way. We don't do those transitional points very well, at least our school doesn't, when we look at transitioning students from high school to college. That's my editorial comment, okay? So what are we talking about learning? For the first time, about 15 years ago, for the first time we started to see learning. How cool is that? We weren't, as a psychologist, waiting for behavior to happen so that we could look at some book and decide what type of schema or what type of difficulty they had or how unique they were. We could do an MRI. We could look at a student, for instance, who was depressed, give them 6 weeks of therapy. We could take a student who was depressed, we could give them 6 weeks of an antidepressant, and we could look at their MRI score and look at the imaging after that and say, oh my God, their brain changed. The activities changed. Their brain looks like somebody who's not depressed now. We actually saw the formation of learning in the brain. Not so much just about depression, but learning. We know now, and there's actually a study in Stanford now after looking at therapy and putting on, skull cap that has electrodes on it. Basically, we can see the brain learning through these activities. How cool. We know that if a young child takes the Suzuki method of taking a violin and does that for 10 years, that if we look at their brain, the anatomy of their brain changes. The part of the brain that deals with the coordination of the left hand is larger than for another 10-year-old. We actually are using a muscle to get bigger. And we know that that's all the result of learning and about talking and hearing. In other words, the work that I'm doing right now, and some of you are still listening, and I thank you for that. Some of you are still listening. Guess what? Your brain's changing. In fact, for some of you, your brain's getting bigger. What a lovely thing to have as a result of our conversation together. Think about when you're working with students, and whether you're a teacher, whether you're working in support, whether you're creating an environment for students, think about the fact that when those students on a break are walking down the corridor or in your classroom, look at them like little brains, okay? And watch those little brains go, okay? And thinking your work is actually going directly into transforming their brain. to significant levels beyond anything that has to do with heredity. What a job you have, and what a job you have in helping those brains develop. I think that's important. I think you know that's important. And we at the University of Higher Ed, we've forgotten that. We've forgotten that in a number of different ways. And for many of us, we have been about the business of exchanging content. I was actually brought into New Zealand and was there for 5 years because they wanted to move to an American method away from a British method, which is basically that traditional Oxford, I stand up in front of you and kind of do your thing, and do my talking, etc., and then you take notes, and then you take an evaluation and see if you pass or not. Interesting enough, a couple of Oxford professors, when I said that, said, you forget something. We also are very attentive to the individual student, the individual growth. We just call it going to the pub on Friday. That's all we do. And that's exactly right, okay? They have found informal ways of making those connections that are probably just as important. But when we look at this, we're looking at what is success for those students. And they wanted to look at a model where we really engage students, all the work that you're doing, I won't get into, you know it better than I do, and looked at the markers of engagement that made sense. And here's the other thing that you're doing right, in my understanding. About 20 years ago, we looked at the measuring engagement actually helped us to see if students were learning, and that's true. There's high correlations there. About 15 years ago or 10 years ago, somebody realized something. Actually, it was a whole list of people who kind of took on this kind of establishment had driven, I won't go into the history, but basically that if we ask students at any age if they've learned something, they can tell us. Oh my God, I mean, students know when they're learning, and you can assess that and have them start to understand that learning process? The answer is absolutely yes. In fact, that's probably the biggest gift we give students, is to understand how they can strategize learning and how and when they are learning and how they can articulate that back and how they can go all the way to a university professor and say, you know, I learn best when first you lay out the why and then you give me the how, rather than when you give me out the steps and I have to put that together. So just put that on your chart there, because if you learn to teach more universally, everybody in the class would succeed. Okay? I haven't had a student do that yet, but I'm waiting for that to happen. That's got to happen for us to move forward, okay? So that we understand the different strategies. So learning's important because it's neurologically important and it's a base of where we go. Secondly, I mentioned the student. I'll stay with that as important. I'll move forward. The next issue is about success. I'm going to clear up all the problems with success models. Success, holistic success, becoming the person you want to. Attainment, what you want to move forward to. Achievement, how you demonstrate that along the way. Those are all significant markers of success. Personal, subjective, objective success are all important. But let me tell you something even more important along the way. And that is, we can, as a group, decide on a very specific success marker. And I want to share this with you. And it's simply, how about graduation from college? Again, from those students who want to do that. You have other success markers. Community college, looking at those students who want to go into different professions, students who may not require that. I'm selfish. I want as many of your students as I can get, and I want to help them to graduate, and I would like to, through the university, to set up that contract that we wind up having a well-articulated pathway to how to make that happen. And what do we want to make happen? Not that they come to the university, but they succeed. How do they succeed? In all the myriad of ways people succeed, but one of them is important that I think, and that's graduation. Okay? Let's have graduates. California, in the next 10 years, within that spirit, will need and are deficient, even if we graduate everybody in our state that we need at this point, will be 1.1 million people short in order for our workforce. 1.1 million who have college degrees. Okay? Makes sense. Let's get them graduated. Let's get them a part of the economy. Let's make it work for them in a way that makes sense. Okay? This is the part that I love. There's enough issue out there now that say this right so I'm not creating an error, that by the year 2040, okay, 40% of the jobs in California that are now here are non-existent. They've changed or they've gone away. We're building a building right now that I didn't know, our parking lot. It's got 1,700 spaces. It's being built in this really cool modular way. And I was talking to the architect, and he said, you know, one thing that's really neat about this building, we built it in such a way as you can turn it into a classroom at any time you want to. You just fill it in. I said, well, that's really kind of cool. So why are you doing that? He said, because in the lifetime of that building, about 30 years, you won't need this anymore. All these students are becoming on autonomous vehicles. You won't need parking like this anymore. I'm like, oh my God, these are your students. They're going to be going for jobs that you don't even know about now at such a rapid pace. Unbelievable. We should be in concert together so that we're setting them up for success as well, about not only what they learn in terms of content, but how they learn it and for them to articulate it. Does that make sense? Okay. I don't want to bore you. I want you to get excited. So let's talk about the last thing that's exciting. We're doing very good work with that outcome part of it, student learning success outcomes. We are measuring in ways that we've never measured before. We have an eco-technological ecosystem that I think is probably a rival to anything in the country. It's built on predictive analytics. How cool is that? Not only predictive analytics, we're into prescriptive analytics. So here's the evolution of measurement of outcome, okay? One, we used to do descriptive analysis. It's great. In fact, because I got into probably the wrong program, a strong sense of my background is statistics. I had a professor by the name of Ken Hopkins, who if you've ever taken a statistics class, it probably has his name on it. Basically, he used to advocate that really what we're trying to do is find ways of assessing that are our assessment, not evaluating. You know this. How to teach the student where their limitations are and how to move them forward in the success paradigm. That's your whole system. We're just learning how to do that in higher education, okay? So moving forward in that direction, he always had the assumption that any assessment that you give should be a learning experience, okay? It's not an evaluation. Literally, when I took his classes and took his assessments, I would start doing problems, and I would go, oh, I see how that works. I was learning, he knew how to draw a test. How many times have you taken assessments where you're learning at the same time? If you do that a lot and you're creating those type of assessments, you're doing the right kind of work in my regard. So how do we measure this? In real time is the real concern. For many years, we've been doing studies. We look for causation because we're all scientists at heart, and we're trying to figure out how this leads to that. Literally at Sacramento State, we're moving away from that model. We're moving to a correlation real-time model. No longer will we follow students for 15 years and then do an autopsy about why it didn't work, okay? And then get that material back to you in 15 years from now if you can. We don't have the time to do that. We have graduation rates that need to change. We have students that need to be ready for this real world. We have to do things in real time. So we developed predictive analytics. And basically, from descriptive, we went to an inferential, we took samples, and now what we're looking at is big data. We use big data in a big way. And in this coming year, we're tracking students on a number of correlations. We're taking all the data in the university that we grab, demographics data, information related to their outcomes, transcripts, all those kinds of things, where they're coming from as well, if we can do that, depending on if we can open that up. And then we are looking at what are the correlations, not what the causations are. And I kid with people, but it's not too far from the truth. If I find out, and we have swipe cards and those kinds of things, that a student is buying a t-shirt, a blue t-shirt at the university, and at night is getting a Coke, because we can watch when they get a Coke and when they get a blue t-shirt, and that has incredibly high correlation with graduation, I'm buying a Coke and a blue shirt for everyone, and I'll let you all figure out why that works, okay? I would like to offer those type of directions of looking at these issues with each one of you. You're doing work now that we can begin to correlate and see where are the success pathways based on success, okay? That's critical. We have another program now that's looking at course, looking at, again, quantitative and looking at analytics. That kind of says which courses are students getting hung up on? Where do they take a course and deviate the wrong way because of the nature of the course? So we can change the courses. We're even doing that with impact. Did they take an internship that was effective or not in terms of their course to success? In other words, everything is correlated with one thing, and that is graduation and success, okay? It's not about everything, but we look at the pathway along the way that makes sense for this. Is that cool or what? Okay, let me just tell you to get ready, because here's the next part. As we start to get through this type of analytics, okay, which are basically looking at the possibility of analytics, we're moving to prescriptive analytics now. How cool is that? So let's say we see a correlation, we try something, and now we can see whether that prescription worked in real time. We can put this at your desk as a teacher. We can put it in dashboards so you can see each individual student like you're doing now, but we can track where they are across metrics. We are working with Apple right now to put this in a mobile unit. So parents can not only see kind of what are the options, but get this, they can see what are the probabilities. If Joe gets a particular grade in this and wants to get a grade in the next course in this, what is the probability if he takes tutoring, for instance, to improve? Or as a part of a particular program and improves. In other words, we're giving real-time data so that students and parents can make these decisions along the way too, based on probabilities. Strength-based, staying with that. And one of the things that's interesting, people say, well, that's a bit of profiling. Guess what? After doing this kind of work for the last 5 years, generally nationally, the lowest correlation is with demographics. Okay? It's not about your ethnicity, about probability. It's really about previous learning experience. Scaffolding, what we're all doing together, scaffolding to make things successful. How cool is that? And here's the next part. What's our next evolution within the next 5 years? We'll be into artificial intelligence. Okay? So we'll be looking at a machine, maybe it's called Siri, I don't know, and basically a parent can say, or a student can say, Siri, I got to be in this class, and I'd like to go on and do chemistry too. What type of option should I do, and what would be my probability if that happens to be successful? How cool. Or we'll have Siri fill out the student's class schedule based on strength. How cool is this? All right? And what will our role be? Guess what? We'll be the relationship educators, where we always should have been, and really working along with other educators, and I mean that in the broadest sense of the word, to help people to learn how to use these robots, how to use these automated systems. We're going to be moving away from learning how to do the technical side of it. I mean, we're teaching like computers. Think about this. It's like our generation was taught how to use a telephone. I mean, the inner workings of a telephone. Most people don't want to know that. How can I use the telephone? How can I use the computer? How can I enhance my life and be successful by using these tools? Are any of you like blown away by this stuff? Okay? All right? And you are literally laying the platform. So what I have an ask for you. Let us, I'm asking you, I'm pleading with you, let us be a part of this developmental process with you. Let's monitor it. Let's use your your personal learning plan. Let's put that quantitatively. For those who want to do it, if parents want to do it or whatever, let's start to track this. Let's give you information back. You give us information back. Let's have conversations together. Let's get excited again about the learning experience. Let's understand it, and let's help students who want to achieve levels of success. Is that a plan? Did the invitation work? Thank you very much, and thank you for listening to me. Any questions, comments? Please make them easy and challenging. Any? Come on, we have curious minds there. Yes, please.
So my question is kind of based on that 4-year plan of getting kids to graduate. As a parent of a senior in high school and a freshman, I also worry, though, about the availability of classes to get them through in that 4-year time period, because I would like to save the $23,000 to have them go through in 4 years rather than 6. So with that plan of making sure kids are taking the 15 units and stuff, what are they making plans to make those classes available for those students?
Yes.
To get through?
Yes. So last year was the first year that we made this promise to students. We actually entered into a promise with them to help them with that. And we have the California promise now as well to finish in 4. To that event, we literally put up $3.2 million in additional classes. There was an overall cost of about $10 million additional. We don't receive in the university system any additional monies between 12 hours a semester and 15. So we took it on our direction, and our president did as well, to say we're not going to do another addition to our landscaping, we're not going to do addition to our buildings, we're not going to do anything additional until we have the amount of classes and the right classes at the right time. We blew open our schedules, we moved to a smart planner. Now students literally look at about 1,000 different programs for them in their first year. Through this smart planner, we develop with them which type of program is the most efficient for 4 years, not just in their first semester. They can then put into that particular program, maybe they need to work, or maybe they don't want to get an 8 o'clock in the morning classroom class, maybe they want to take a particular work schedule and match it, etc. They can put in those filters and they come up with one better schedule for them. And that schedule gives them a guaranteed entrance into that classroom. The other thing that we're doing that's significant, and this is across the whole system, we're just starting it a year earlier than the other 22 universities in the CSUS system, and we're moving away from remedial classes. Okay, this has great impact for high schools as well. We used to have 40% of our students take remedial classes, and we used to hammer secondary schools, it's all your fault. I mean, we didn't say that out loud, but I even had a secondary principal say, hey, I'm sorry, they're not prepared. Well, we looked at it and we found out that if we just redefine the type of math we would require to be successful, if we change that first year math to moving from a gate, if you will, to get into this privileged place called higher education, and not as a corridor of development, and made our first year math more developmentally orientated, we cut our remedial classes down to 10%. Okay? Now, that's this year. Next year, the system saw what we're doing. I think we're going to take credit for this. Saw what we're doing. There will be no remedial classes in CSU system for math next year. Okay? What there will be is placement and developmental courses. There'll be modules that help students catch up. There'll be extended courses. There'll be supplemental courses. But students begin taking credit hours because remedial classes are not credit bearing. So we want to move them along. Our English is the same way. We've moved to a directed English program. Students direct which program in English they want to go in. That's been going for 2 years and been highly successful as well. We're getting it that we're a part of the pathway. We're not the door anymore. Okay? And that means classes have to be accessible, and have to be accessible. We actually have a Sunday class now. Try to think about that. That's revolutionary for a faculty member to show up on Sunday. Why? Because it was a good time to get that particular issue done. Others? Questions? We just received, along with Los Reyes Community College, a $2 million innovation grant that will be doing exactly what I said we'd like to do with all of you. And we're tracking students at the time they come into community college and tracking those pathways so that they can, at the beginning of their time, literally say where they'll be in 4 years. Okay? They can actually see their schedule for 4 years, even though they're just 2 years. If they're choosing something like an associate degree for transfer, if they're choosing to go on. And, getting back to your question, making sure we're planning for those classes so that we can see the evolution and development of it. It's integrated enrollment management is what they call it. In other words, it's setting up pathways, getting good advice, and then making sure the environment allows that to happen along the way. And we like to replicate that with all the community colleges as well, as an example of one of the ways we're working together. One thing I'd like to mention to you is, I dare you, the next time you see a cucumber, not to think about something unique. So thank you very much.
All right. Well, isn't that cool? Cool to have a university leader in Galt, California, along with our city manager, high school superintendent, board members, and all of you, because together there's no stopping where we go, where this continues to evolve. And the quick reflection I have in terms of what Dr. Dragna, what Jim has shared, is that you can see and hear that Cal State University Sacramento, there's rethinking that they're doing to become more learner-centered. And you can see that they are looking at assessments in new ways. And there are some ways that I look forward to working with them along with our high school district and city of Galt as well. So in terms of our work together, I'd like us to look at our accomplishments, how we've moved forward. This will be emailed to you later today, and again, we do have hard copies of this as well. But here are a combination of systems accomplishments. Looking at individual goal accomplishments, I'm just going to highlight a few. We had 8% increase of English learners who met individual English language development goals. When you look at this profile, you'll see that there's information about the numbers of children and youth in our community that participated in summer food services programs. We have 31 teachers that took part last school year in the pilot of a professional learning cycle with a rubric aligned to forward-thinking work. In addition, there's information here concerning project-based service learning. In 2013-14, we have 58% of our learners in our school system participating in project-based service learning. This last school year, 95%. We also have on this profile our accomplishment with Measure K and the millions of dollars that will come to upgrade our school facilities as well. And so there's a lot to celebrate in terms of our work for continuous improvement. And if we go to the next slide, what I'm going to quickly highlight is that in our key refinement areas related to our strategic plan goals, our LCAP goals, we have the top six, 1 through 6, KRA 1 through 6, are the same as the last school year with refinements. The only new one is number 7. Number 7 addresses restorative practices and how certificated staff and classified staff will be working together to advance restorative practices. On the right-hand side, 2 other continuous improvement efforts I wanted to emphasize. You heard Dr. Dragna talk about the importance of students, of learners, thinking about their learning, knowing how to make decisions about their learning, planning for next steps. Well, we do. We have personalized learning plans in our school system. And we know that it has been a work in progress. It's groundbreaking work. And on the right-hand side, you can see that there are some improvements, and I'm going to highlight this. Just imagine a personalized learning plan, a learner profile pamphlet, and a status, a growth and achievement page. So pamphlet and a page, that's our PLP. The exciting part about the personalized learning plan is that beginning at TK, there's going to be a lot more of our learners' engagement in the personalized learning plan. So that's going to be a transition there with again, a more streamlined approach. The second area has to do with MAP. We know that we want to look at a combination of assessments over time to look at growth and achievement. We know that it's important to look at growth. We also know that there are new measures that are coming from the state, and there are local measures that we're using. So we are not going to continue with MAP for the 3rd trimester for grades 3 and up. Okay, so that's going to come off the plate, but we are going to use it for 2 trimesters and some grade levels for 3. So that's another change. So these are in a snapshot improvement areas that you'll hear more and learn more about as the year goes on. And if we go to the next slide, what I also wanted to emphasize is you've heard me bring up several times now that when we've looked at continuous improvement, it's really important that we look at evaluation and really what is that? What does that become? And so there has been work over time that we've been doing in this area. 31 teachers our last school year participated in a professional learning cycle where there was self-reflection, work with school administrators, but also peer observation as part of the process. What I did is, and again, I will send this to you later today, but there are 4 testimonials. There are 4 testimonials because the teachers who participated in this provided input about this evaluation process and what was important to them. I'm going to emphasize the last one, the power of peer observation. Because as we look to strive to get better, each and every one of us, as employees in the Galt Joint Union Elementary School District, we need to reach out to others, to peers and others to help get better. And so I wanted to emphasize that. And then at the very bottom of this slide, for those of you, for the teachers in this room that you're interested in learning more about taking part in this for the next school year, is that on Wednesday, September 20th, there's a 1-hour meeting at our district office. If you participated last school year and you want to do it again, we welcome you to come. If you didn't do it and you're interested, we invite you to come as well. So again, it does take shared responsibility. It takes all of us working together. And the next few slides, we're going to go through the next few slides. It does take teamwork. It takes our board of trustees. It takes district leadership. You can see that there's some new leadership that we have. Mindo, if you could raise your hand. Min is back. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. And leaders, leaders across our school system, and there are leaders and staff who leave and they come back and look at how well they're received. And then in our school, thank you, Min, thank you, everyone. We have school leadership changes as well. We have some teachers in our district who became assistant principals, and so you'll see some changes. We have Allison Calhoun at River Oaks. Tina Hamdas at Greer Elementary. And then we have another employee who served as a district psychologist in our school system and program specialist, Kuljit Nijar. Nijar is back to Galt as well. Our union leaders make a difference for our school system and for you. And I'm really grateful for the work that we've done together to make strides. So we have our union leadership recognized, and we'll go to the next slide. Thank you, union leaders. You'll notice we have classified and certificated leadership recognized here, from teachers who serve as coaches to classified supervisors. And we also have classified representatives who are becoming leaders in the area of youth development. Thank you. Let's go to the next slide. And again, oh my goodness, you know what? It's not that. I know that Jim Dragna had us standing up in different ways. And I just, we have pages of this, but I wanted to recognize just a few of the leadership opportunities in our school system, from next generation science standards to English learner lead teachers, to teachers and administrators and others who worked on MTSS, to also our professional learning cycle and our Cali team. And we'll go to the next slide. And guess what? Our future is very bright in Galt, California, isn't it? So let's give each other a hand. I'm so proud to serve as your superintendent, and you can see, if I think about goal number 1 of where we're going with the bright future, look at how our pathways are growing and articulating from cradle to career. Jim Dragna, thank you so much. Where are you? Thank you so much for being here, and thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.